Hello and welcome to episode 273 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I had a week where I went to three different sporting events. How about that?
That's impressive.
I went to see the Orioles and Nationals at Camden Yards, which was, believe it or not, my first trip to Camden Yards. I'd been by Camden Yards, but I'd never seen a game there before. So I saw a game there. I saw game 4 of the Lightning and the Avalanche.
With a very controversial ending.
Very controversial ending. And then yesterday I saw a disappointing end to a really, really good game between the Pirates and the Rays at the Tropicana Field. So 3 sporting events in 1 week, which I have done for a long, long time. And, I would have to say that I didn't pay much attention to the Orioles Nationals game because I was there with a bunch of people from Under Armour and just was talking to people the whole time. So I didn't really get to watch the game, but I watched the Lightning game and I watched the Pirate game. They both really, really good games. But let's start with the draft.
Okay. Well, depending on which sporting news outlet you're reading, I guess it was somewhat of a surprise at the first pick.
Yeah, I was surprised because I didn't hear that name mentioned with them, associated with them. And a lot of things I saw, it looked like it was going to be 1, 2, 3, and he was 3.
That's what it seemed like. But I mean, as we discussed off air, the guy that went 3 to the Rockets, Jalen Smith, he has some character issues, you could say. And he seems to be one of those guys with limited upside, or not limited upside, but he's what he is now. He's a great shooter, a good passer, but not a great ball handler. But they just figured he would fit into spacing where you could kick, like with the Rockets, they like his fit because, he's going to, he can be on the outside. He can cut to the rim. He can be your second or third option and be good with that. But Paolo seemed to be the best player now, including what he did, against Chet Holmgren and obviously Gonzaga. And then you got the Magic with, a nice little start with Paolo. Last year's Franz Wagner. And then maybe you got something, finally, in Orlando.
I'm hoping so. They've been struggling since Dwight Howard left. It's just been one struggle after another. They've not been good.
Well, people seem to really like Wagner. They really like Paolo now. They think they can fit really good as the 3-4. That combo. They compare him to like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum as like one of those just long, lanky, can do it all duos, which is pretty high praise considering the Celtics were just in the finals. And then if the Magic can figure out the other pieces around them, whether it's Markelle Fultz or White or whoever it is, and, Jalen Suggs. I don't think you bring back Mo Bamba. Maybe get Jonathan Isaacs back. But I would say this draft, because my other favorite draft was obviously Detroit.
Okay.
Who added, Jaden Ivey, who has some shooting limitations and some passing limitations, but is a nasty drive to the bit, good defender, good size, and they just feel like he and Cade Cunningham make a perfect duo. Because Cade is your floor general. He's your ball handler. He's fine passing the ball, like he doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time, but he can shoot. And now you got Jaden Ivey, They added the center from Memphis, who, is going to be a much cheaper option for the next 4 years than going after DeAndre Ayton. You still have a bunch of cap space. Maybe you'll get Miles Bridges out of Charlotte, sign real max offer, and you've got yourself a really nice team in Detroit. So then you got like Orlando, Detroit, both making nice strides, which you'd like to see in a draft. But then you got teams like the New York Knicks and the Sacramento Kings who continue to do New York Knicks, Sacramento Kings sort of things. Right?
And they are confounding. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a team that's been bad for as long as the Sacramento Kings.
You really would be. And it's not like it's been the same, they keep getting new GMs, new coaches. And, it seemed like Jaden Ivey was if there was going to be a 4th all-star level player, and there might be other guys throughout, but he was the consensus 4th overall pick. Now, granted, you drafted Fox, Halliburton, Mitchell in like back-to-back years. You maxed out Fox. You traded away Halliburton. So you could argue that there was some sort of, redundancy. And if you want Mitchell to develop and you're already paying Fox all this money, that you bring in another guard like Ivy, who's also sort of a driver, sort of like Fox, who's not a great shooter. That's not a great mix. but I still feel like you take him and trade him. You do something like you gotta, because it looks like they added just more. And the Knicks continue to, they traded, for those who don't know, they traded away the 13th overall. No, they traded the 12th pick for the 13th pick, and then they ended up trading that, and they got 3 future first round picks from Oklahoma City. And as we talked a little bit offline, like, in theory, I don't mind trading 1 first round pick outside, in the back half of the lottery for 3 future firsts, even if those future firsts are owned by Milwaukee and 2 other teams that probably aren't going to be picking very low. But it's been, you had that one blip of a year, 2 years ago, right? Where,
Yep.
Julius Randle was happy. You had R.J. Barrett and Quigley. It looked like this team was becoming something, and now you're right back to, I guess, mediocrity. At best, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what your plan is.
And if you think of the prices that they pay for those tickets in New York,
yeah,
what they have, it's like they charge Neiman Marcus prices for Kmart product.
Yeah, and I would think if you're a Knicks fan, they've been an incredibly loyal fan base.
Yes.
It's a great place to watch a game. It's still one of my favorite all time. That's why I fell. I didn't really. From Pittsburgh, we don't have a Pittsburgh basketball team. So, I kind of just fell in love with I liked Oakley and Mason and that tough New York team of the '90s, and then we got to see them live, and it was just a magical experience going to the Garden. But I don't know what those fans are going to, because year after year they're not getting the free agents. Their draft picks, they haven't picked a star. You like what R.J. Barrett is, but and then you got Tim Thibodeau as coach. I don't know what they're doing.
No idea. I'm encouraged by Oklahoma City, but now, like we talked offline, now's the time to put the pieces together, see what you have.
Yeah.
You've accumulated all the chips. Now's the time to play your hand. So I'll be curious to see if they can start making some movement this year.
And the thing about them, but I guess this doesn't really matter because everybody pointed out, there's a French guy next year. Like this year's draft, like whether you were taking Chet or Paolo or Smith, this wasn't a LeBron year. This wasn't a Kevin Durant year. This was, maybe you've got a multiple all-star, but not an all-time player. But the French kid next year is like a tank for. They think he's the real deal. But as everyone has pointed out, like you can't really tank in the NBA as much as you used to. And even if you have all these assets, nobody is, although they did with Luka, so who knows? But you would think they would have learned their lesson now that if you have a potential generational talent, you don't trade back. You just take the guy.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see. I'll be curious what happens to Phoenix now. Because they were close for 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
The Ayton thing obviously didn't work, and they could have had Luka, and that would have made a huge difference. But now,
well, you
kind of have to move Ayton because you've decided, and all the messages you send, he's not your guy, and you don't draft high enough.
And then you
probably get some cap room, but what's out there?
And again, I know it's great for a lot of people, but you didn't take Halliburton, who would have fit in perfectly with that Phoenix team. You took Smith, and you didn't even pick up his third-year option. DeAndre Ayton, your first overall pick from you said the Luka draft. He's a restricted free agent. So they can match, but they had a chance to max him out. Some team is going to give him the max, so you're probably going to lose him for nothing. Chris Paul is,
on the long side of 39,
and he just, whether it's been bad luck or injury, he's not around at the end of the season when you need him. It's just...
No. And you kind of need him to play a lot to get there.
You do.
So you're kind of wearing, hurting yourself late in the year, but without him, you don't get to late in the year. So it's an interesting dilemma.
And again, if you had drafted Halliburton instead of Smith, a guy you didn't even pick up his third-year option on, then you would have had a third guard that could have fit in seamlessly and played alongside Chris Paul or filled in for Chris Paul when necessary, even bought him some time. So just, it's easy to obviously play hindsight and all that stuff, but just kind of a mess.
Well,
And
Which brings us to it. Speaking of a mess,
the Los Angeles Lakers, hoping that they get
and Kyrie Irving.
yeah. Which I still don't understand what the Lakers could possibly. I mean, unless
Who would they possibly give? They don't have anything to give.
like I don't care about the Lakers 27 or 2029 first round pick, which are the only two picks they can trade in the next decade. As much as we've obviously professed our love of Russell Westbrook, we don't want Russell Westbrook. We don't want Horton Tucker.
No, they're not going to trade Anthony Davis. That's
No.
really their only chip.
And I heard they're hoping to get Kemba Walker, who was bought out by Detroit after he ended up in Detroit via the Knicks. And if you're hoping that Kemba Walker can bring something to your team at this stage,
You're hoping. You might as well send a letter to Santa Claus.
yeah.
Because it's not going to happen. But so that's an interesting dilemma. You got the Kyrie. The only reason the Kyrie thing, if there's any kind of contract offer coming at all, is because of Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And you can't afford to alienate or lose Kevin Durant. Although, my point to Kevin Durant would be, hey, let's let him go. Let him go where he's going to go. We'll take that money, and you can have a say in whoever we get. We'll go after whoever you want us to go after with that money.
And if you're the Nets, you're also counting very highly on one Ben Simmons.
Yes, you are.
Which, has not proven great. And if you're Kevin Durant, who we know has big ears, not literally, but in terms of paying attention to what people are saying, Steph winning the ring and getting the chip has hurt Kevin Durant's legacy quite a bit. Because before, people felt like even though Steph won without KD, that KD came in, was the best player on those two teams, and that KD was clearly, in the hierarchy, as dumb as rankings are, like you would rank Kevin Durant over Steph career-wise. Whereas now people feel like that's not even a conversation, that Steph is clearly a better player overall than KD career-wise.
And I'm in that camp.
I am as well.
I'm in that camp for sure.
But now if you're Kevin Durant...
Kevin Durant's a great player.
Yeah.
But Steph has proven over the long run in one place with different teams that he's a power maker.
And for Kevin Durant, he needed to go get his ring somewhere. Like LeBron got his Cleveland ring, He teamed up with his super team in Miami. He got another one in the bubble season when he teamed up with Anthony Davis. But when he got his ring in, I know it was Bosh and Kevin Love, but I mean, that was sort of, LeBron's team.
Right.
And this was really, as much as it was a big three when they first won the chip, and then it was a big four with Durant when they won the next two, this was Steph's team that won the ring.
Right.
And KD is still searching for his KD's team.
Yeah.
And
Interesting times, man. Interesting times.
yeah. So, because I feel like, if you're the Nets, granted you got the two Philadelphia picks back in the Ben Simmons deal, but if somehow you get all three of those guys, including Harden, for a total of 16 games, where they were the most efficient offense in offensive history. But then you end up, at the end of this season, if you end up with like one playoff win and none of those guys on your roster, and just Ben Simmons and a couple Philadelphia picks after all that, that's going to be pretty sad.
Yeah.
Very, very sad.
Yeah, we'll follow the basketball stories. We'll follow, see what happens going on. But let's go to the courtroom.
Okay.
Let's talk about Deshaun. You're thinking a year, right?
The rumor seems to be an indefinite suspension that will be no less than 1 year. Because as we've talked about offline, he did settle 20 of the 24 suits. And I feel like,
The other four are going to be ugly.
the other four are going to be ugly unless he really starts parting with some of that $260 million guaranteed. I mean, because supposedly he finished, like you said, it was $100,000 to settle all these risks, which is, when you have that kind of money, that's kind of chump change.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody told me $20 to $100,000 each.
Yeah.
So that's what I heard. So we'll see.
We will. But given the situation that there's no criminal charges, like the best a woman, that they can hope for, sadly, as the victims in this case, is money. Because charges aren't going to be brought. So,
Yeah.
I think Deshaun Watson needs to just ask them what they want and open up his checkbook. But the other big court case, of course, is happening in the D.C. area.
Yes, it is. And the counter, the sham investigation and the counter investigation and the cloaking and everything else. So it's going to come down to, will 75% of the owners vote to eject this guy?
And the sad thing is, the reason most of them don't want to is because they also have a closet full of evil deeds they don't want to know.
That's right. So you're setting a precedent here, saying that, this could happen to me. And so I don't think that's likely.
No. And currently, do you know where Daniel Snyder's is sitting? On a boat in international waters.
I mean, there's no question he's done some just terrible things.
And his people...
Just a shit culture, but I don't know. I'd have to see it happen.
And as people have pointed out, before 1998, when he took over that team, they were one of the crown jewels of the NFL.
Oh, yeah. No question about it.
And now I've heard that they don't even, they're trying to get a new stadium deal done, and they're talking about maybe being an hour outside of D.C., which would put you this equal distance as the Ravens from D.C. And if you're equal distance than the Ravens, and again, as a Steeler fan, it pains me to say this, but if I'm a kid, I'm a Ravens fan.
Oh, no question. No question. No question at all on that.
Yeah. Ravens are way cooler than
Commanders.
Commanders.
A lot of support. He gave up the nickname. Commanders is, whatever you want to call it, it is what it is. Terrible place to work. Bad reputation. And Goodell did not come across well to me in the congressional hearings.
No.
When you're trying to explain why you don't have a written report, and you're saying because you can't redact everything and people would find things out that are supposed to be confidential, that's not a good answer.
That's a terrible answer.
And you're not taking the time to you're not hiring someone to investigate and they're going to present a report to you that's going to be a totally oral report. Are you kidding me? There had to be slides, or there had to be handouts, or there had to be something. So when you tell me there's no written record, I think I call BS on it.
Yeah. And you'd have to think, with basically 31 other billionaires that own these teams, all the TV revenue, there's got to be and then all the money he would get from selling the Washington Commanders, which I know he doesn't want to do because he's an incredibly stubborn person. But there's got to be some sort of under the table deal where he gets, the gold watch of all gold watches, and somehow the value of his team is pumped up by an extra $2 billion or something, and just get him out.
Yeah, but see that.
I know.
With an owner in sports, the reason you're an owner is you want your name in the paper.
Yeah.
You want to have an ego. And who heard of Daniel Snyder before he bought the Redskins? Nobody. Or very few people. And so that comes part of this. So it's your ego. Well, let's see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah. And then in the other case...
On a brighter note, I want to talk about the College World Series.
Let's go to the brighter note.
College World Series, you have two teams that were, the talking heads said, if this was NCAA basketball tournament, you'd have a 5 playing a 12 for the national championship. And people love that kind of story. That's two Davids.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Oklahoma's played really well and won the Big 12 tournament. And I told you offline, Mississippi's conference record in the SEC was 14-16. And they were literally one of the last two teams in. Both teams played, didn't host a regional, didn't host a super regional. So they've essentially been on the road for a month. And they've won their games, and now they're playing, and Mississippi won last night. Every game's sold out. It's loud. The fans are going crazy. I have already made a commitment to go next year now. I've missed it enough that I've told you it's my favorite sporting event, so I've already made a commitment to go next year.
Yeah. And you proved in the past week you still go to events.
It's amazing. It's amazing. They just do a great job. And so game 2 is today. And, if Mississippi wins, it'll be one of the real feel-good stories. That a real David, a real underdog, went from the 63rd or 64th seed in the field to win it all. And that's never happened in anything. So it's kind of cool to see it.
It is very cool to see it, yeah.
And I got to wonder if my Lightning can win tonight and force a game 7. When I'm watching a game, there's a lot to be said for the heart of the champion because the Lightning is slower than the Avalanche, and they're more beat up than the Avalanche, and they're missing more key parts than the Avalanche, and yet they're still fighting. So it's kind of fun to watch. I'm not that great of a hockey fan, but I do like the Lightning. I know enough about. I've watched them enough times now that I know who their players are and everything, and I'm really hoping they win today and then get to play a game 7. But being down 3-1 and winning 3 would be an amazing accomplishment for your 3-peat. That would really put the icing on the cake.
It would. And if you want a reason for the other team to win outside of hockey, there's a guy that did a matching free bet, and he bet that this year that the Rams, the Warriors, and the Avalanche would win, and he would win $270,000 from one of those board betting apps.
That's all?
Yeah. Well, it's a free bet, so you only bet a small amount of money. But it's because it's not a rich person. It's not like Ben Affleck bet those teams and he's going to win. Like, this is somebody that used his free bet for that parlay.
Oh, he used his free bet to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
That's a great story.
Yeah. So he's sweating it out, obviously.
Wow. How about worst quote of the week? You want to talk about Chase Claypool?
Yeah, this will be our Steeler moments. Yeah. So Chase Claypool says he is a top.
Claypool said that he's one of the 3 best receivers in the NFL. Go, Jason.
As you've said, and not even jokingly, he might not be one of the 3 best receivers on the Steelers, who don't possess any of the top 3 receivers in the NFL. He has the physical tools. He is 6'4". He's got long arms, big hands. He's fast. His rookie year, he looked like he was on pace, right?
Absolutely.
He ran for like 400.
He's got the tools to be one of the
Yeah.
3.
But what we've noticed, is that there's too many times where he's a 6'4" guy. And granted, he did not have the best quarterback throwing to him these first 2 years in the league, but there'll be a jump ball situation. And if you're the 6'4", 220-pound receiver on the 5'10", 180-pound defensive back, you need to out-physical him for the ball and not get beat for the ball.
And on occasion, he does that, but not consistently and not as frequently as he should.
And as he did point out on his own, which is nice to see some humbleness in his brag, he did point out that he needs to leave his feet less often, which he loves to do. He loves to end up on his back with the ball in his hands.
I'd like to see him run through his pattern a few more times.
Yeah, and finish out the routes, all that good stuff, yes. And again, if he became the best receiver on the Steelers, that would be impressive. Kind of, I guess.
I'd be content with that.
Yeah. If he's mentioned in the division as best receiver in the AFC North, alongside Jamar Chase, and I guess Mark Andrews, that would be, again, a nice step.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. And, that is some... do we have any good NFL news? I guess that's kind of funny NFL news.
Well, we'll know... We should know Baker Mayfield's fate shortly.
Yeah.
When camps open up. Now, if you're the Browns and you get suspended for a year, is Baker your quarterback for a year? You still dumping him?
I think, you brought in Tyrod Taylor. Again, it just seems like it's a little bit, a little bit like that DeAndre Ayton. It's just like you had a chance to commit to DeAndre Ayton. You didn't want to. It clearly affected him. You call that mentally weak and call whatever you want, but you've clearly severed, that relationship, and now you want to bring him back, and it's like, I don't know.
You couldn't get prom date, so now you want me to go to the prom?
Yeah. Be like, oh, I asked you, and you said no, and now you're okay. Let's see how it is. Yeah. But it is football, and football is just exciting.
Well, let's move to entertainment.
Okay.
You saw a good movie that you rented on Amazon.
I did. I rented Watcher, which is a very Hitchcockian thriller. It has sort of shades of Rear Window, but I will warn the audience that I don't mind a slow burn. and this is a very slow burn. You'll see some amazing cinematography. There's some amazing, sound. Like the sound is really good. It's in Romania, so you get some cool visuals, but it is slow. And then on the other flip side of that, I watched Schmindagiddon or Schmindagon.
Oh yeah, the Brigadoon spoof.
The Brigadoon spoof on Apple TV Plus, and I really enjoyed it.
It's funny. It's well done.
And I enjoyed it without a full knowledge of all the musicals that were clearly referenced during this musical spoof. But I mean, it's got, the woman that just won the Oscar and was in West Side Story, Alan Cumming, Michael Keegan? Yeah, Michael Keegan, Cecily Strong. I mean, it's a really good cast.
Yeah.
And I can never remember that woman's name, but she's a little tiny lady that is in like every Broadway show.
No, it was Mom and I watched it a few months ago and really enjoyed it. It's fun.
And it's only 6 half-hour episodes. And after you watch the first episode, you can skip the opening credits, which are very long, and cut down your time even more because you've seen it again. Even once you've seen the song once, you've seen it a million times. So.
Yep. I'm gonna shout out Dark Winds, which I talked about last week, and now I've seen 2 episodes. Outstanding. Now, Tony Hillerman is the author of the books this is based on. Navajo Reservation. So there's some mysticism and spirituality and occult mixed in with the story and the mystery, and it's really, really well done. And then a lot of it's shot in Monument Valley, which is one of my favorite spots on earth. It's very, very scenic. So the cinematography is also great. The acting's great. The characters are great. So I'm all in on Dark Winds.
Okay.
It's only 6 episodes too, and tonight will be episode 3. But it's on AMC, and it's on AMC Plus on demand.
Yeah.
So I'm big on that. Had a couple food moments. So my Camden Yards trip, I finally, you've always heard about Boog's Barbecue. And they had Boog's Barbecue in the suite. They had beef and turkey, and they were both outstanding. So I was excited that I finally got to eat Boog's Barbecue. But since I was in Maryland, I needed to have crab cakes. And I went to a Greek restaurant called Usas and had 2 crab cakes for dinner. And each one was probably a half a pound crab cake with almost all crab. And it was really, really good. It was outstanding.
Nice.
So, I went with the regional specialty, which in Maryland is crab, and I was very impressed.
Oh, and speaking of food and entertainment, I did have one more food entertainment moment.
Okay.
I watched the latest season on Netflix of Iron Chef, and it was outstanding. Do you know Iron Chef, Dad?
Yeah.
The first episode featured a New Orleans chef who owns Turkey and the Wolf and Molly's Rise and Shine, 2 restaurants I've been to down here. But it is the ultimate food nerd show. Like, the hosts, obviously the panel, which is Zimmerman, and I forget the other woman's name, but you can tell that everybody on that show, lives, breathes, and eats food. And granted, they don't make a lot of things that, people that know me that I would be that into trying, but it's a really fun watch.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what was the dish you walked away from thinking you might try?
Well, I didn't get in, but after watching it, there's a place down here called the Mosquito Supper Club, which does a 6-course tasting menu, and you don't really know what you're going to get till you get there. But we're on the waiting list for that, so.
The Mosquito Supper Club.
Yeah.
Interesting name.
It is. Well, I think some of the dining is outdoors, so.
Okay. What was the name of the other 2 restaurants you mentioned?
Turkey and the Wolf, which is...
That sounds like a cool name.
It's it's become a phenomenon. And then Molly's Rise and Shine, which is like a breakfast place. I think, he ended up losing 85 to 83. So it's a very close race between him and the Iron Chef. I think, it's not just a bias because I've been to his restaurants and I know they're really good, but he definitely went more, he's very quirky. One of the sandwiches of Turkey and Wolf is a bologna sandwich that has crushed up potato chips and some other stuff. And their contest was street food. And I thought he did a much better job of representing street food that you could actually eat. Whereas the other guy I felt sort of cheated. Not cheated, but he made stuff that just seemed less And again, I mean, I guess you could eat anything on the street technically. You could have lobster thermidor if you wanted on the street. No one's going to stop you.
Yeah.
But I always thought street food was something you could more walk and eat.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought some of his I thought the Iron, the guy from New Orleans who, like I said, barely lost. Like he did a lot like quirkier, serving things in school lunch boxes and that kind of stuff. So I thought he was maybe a little bit sillier than judges would have liked.
Got it.
But like I said, it's obviously at the show, so there were people cast. But when you listen to the hosts and you listen to the judges, like you can see them literally nerding out during the show to the cooks cooking, and that's nice. That's kind of what you want to see, like a genuineness in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be inspired to go there, and you want a chef that you get a feel for how he cooks and what he puts into it, how he treats his people and everything. I agree. That's part of the story.
But like I said, both the hosts were just like, "Oh my God, he's doing like he just But it didn't feel like it felt like genuine like nerd people nerding out to what they love, as opposed to being fed in their ear, be excited about the brine,
Yeah, I don't know if I'm excited about the brine, but
No.
I would be excited about the fall with the complete
Yes.
product. So cool. All right, everybody, we'll watch Game 2 of the World Series today, and hopefully it goes to Game 3. You can watch it tomorrow night. I love those winner-take-all games when it's back down to it. I'll be watching the Lightning tonight at 8. So lots of good sports on TV, but we are getting down to the point where we're only going to have baseball for a while.
So we'll bring in some other things during the week. And again, write us in with topics. If you want to come on the show, message us. We can do a Zoom call. We'll put you on.
Yep. And I'll be following this week to see if Ricky Fowler joins the Live Tour. If he does, it'll kill me.
No. It's a lot of money.
All right, everyone, have a great week. Get ready for the 4th.